Today I'm going to start taking apart the Corvette exhaust system. I got it jacked up. Got it nice and level. The front's a little bit higher than the back. I'll see if I have to go taller than this. But basically what we're going to be doing, pulling off the air system, which hooks in here on the air intake, and then down underneath here there's the pump. Then that goes down to this tube here, ties in. This goes over to the passenger side, and then this ties in driver's side right there. It runs around the back. So we're going to tear all that off. We're going to rip the exhaust pipes off, rip off the catalytic converters, the H pipe, and yeah, get it ready to go. I'm going to pull the plugs out, wires, get everything ready to be installed. And I get back when I start to get everything taken apart. Alright, so I got the first half of the air system off. I'll kind of show how it goes on here. This piece is what connects directly to the exhaust manifold. Sits right like that. And it's got some kind of little solenoid in it. Or maybe a check valve. And this is the other piece, which then runs up in behind the engine against the firewall, and this little hose ties in here. Got a connection that pulls apart down here. But you can kind of see, if I pull this out of the way, that's the hose that it connects to. And little plastic ring here. I'll pull that out. It's a little tight. That's the clip holds it in. Just kind of push these two halves apart, and then they separate, and you get wider. But that hose has got to come off, and there's actually a bolt which holds it to the back of the block, I believe. Gotta reach in here somehow and undo that with a wrench. We'll give an update once I've figured that out. It might require a little bit of disassembly of some of this stuff and to reach in there a little better. So, I'll be right back. Alright, I just got the passenger side off, and let me tell you, that was an absolute bitch. Basically, there's this 13mm bolt, which is bolted on, and you can barely reach it, but it's like right back here by this big bundle of wire underneath of this thing, as you can kind of see from its position. And you take that bolt out, and then this thing is loose, and it's still a bitch and a half to get it out of the car. I pulled it towards the passenger side, and I just kind of kept turning it and rotating it and slightly bending the pipe even to get it out, and being careful of this thing not to grab any wires or fuel lines or anything else. But it's out, never to be put back in again. And I need a beer after that, because that was stupid. I'm not gonna lie. GM, don't do that shit. That's ridiculous. I stabbed myself twice on all kinds of little bolts and things, and if I had any bigger hands than what I do, and they're not that big, this would have not been possible. But yeah, it's out. It's off. I'll probably thread that bolt back in. I got a little more space to work now that the check valve's gone, but yeah, a lot of work. Alright, so back at it with day 2. Got the alternator off. I got all the coils and wires pulled. The spark plugs are still in there, but that'll come off next. The other side's done too. I'm gonna have to get a new belt here. I think might have to get a new idler pulley here too. There's a couple of things, just kind of checking as I'm going through. But so far so good. I haven't broken any bolts. I haven't found anything that was overly damaged or concerning. So just kind of going through, taking stuff out, making space. I'm a little bit worried about the steering being in the way. But I guess we'll see when we go to try and fit it. I guess other people say you can go through the top and it works pretty well. The other side I don't think is much of an issue. The driver's side's a little bit tighter. Alright, so just took delivery of the parts here. Got my driver's side. Spun in the old oxygen sensor. We're going to be using those to help our tune. I did notice there's a little bit of a nick in the flange here. It's not that bad, but the gasket should seal it up. They have cuts in the end of the bolt here. That doesn't make much of a difference to sealing services over here. All in all, though, the rest of it looks pretty good. The bends are nice. There's no Mars nicks, scratches in them too bad. I'm sure I'll lose some surface finish. A little bit of something odd going on here with the weld. It looks as if they used a wrong filler material. I guess we'll find out as this runs on the inside. And it looks pretty solid. Everything's nice and welded up. It should seal. I have every expectation. The X pipe looks nice. Nice welds. Offset tubes here so you can put the clamps on easier. I did notice there's no holes drilled on the mounting part there. That might have to have holes drilled. So we'll see when I get to that point. They do have the brackets here for the back half. The flanges at the back look pretty good. These I'm not as worried about them sealing anyway. They did not weld the inside, but they did weld the outside pretty good. It's not a high pressure system, so not too worried about it, but better practice is to have that welded as well and then grind it flush after, which they didn't do, but these are a fairly cheap header. The bends here, pretty smooth, pretty nice. All pretty good. I haven't seen anything concerning really yet. Some of the mounting hardware that it comes with. Yeah, pretty standard. It's all in decent shape. And my other side header, there's this little stub they welded on here. I don't know what it's for, to be honest. Maybe a temperature probe or something would screw into that. But if you look on the inside, it's actually not a through hole. So that's interesting. Flanges look pretty good on this one. No damage at all. So just that one little nick. I haven't installed the oxygen sensor yet, but same thing. A little bit of a strangeness in the weld down here. But all in all, they look pretty good. I'm pretty happy. The box was pretty beat up, but not totally unexpected. The bolts and gaskets that it came with looked to be pretty good. There was a hole in it, and I'm missing one of the bolts, but that's alright because I bought a new set of ARPs. These are the intake manifold bolts that I got as well. But it comes with everything you need, which is pretty nice. All your hangers, your rear flanges to the mufflers, all that kind of stuff that's in here, your rear flange gaskets. And I didn't know it actually came with this at first. I was expecting it to, but it never listed it anywhere saying that it did, so a happy surprise, I guess. The wires are in. MSD makes pretty good stuff. I'll open this up here with one hand. Came with a little tool to number them and all of the wires. You know what they look like. It's a wire. Spark plugs are here. I got the old ones out. To be honest, they weren't too... focus. I don't think they were too dirty. But replace them anyway while I'm at it. I did not get the iridiums. I figure I'll probably be replacing these at like 50,000 anyway. Fire sleeves. I like to keep all the wires from melting on my headers. Yeah, and that's about the sum of everything I got. The header bolts did not come in yet, so I might just kind of dry fit it with the ones that it came with, but swap them when they come in before I torque anything down, just so I can start getting everything hung and fit, putting things away. Alright, so passenger side is in, and I'll say the 1 7/8" tubes was a little bit tighter than I was expecting, but did manage to make it work. I had to take a couple of bolts off the bottom of the engine to let it free. The engine mounts, there's one on each side. I'll get underneath here in a second and show them out, but I loosened those up, put a jack stand under this half of the engine, kind of gave her a tilt, and then wiggled it down. Had to pull this air conditioner line a little bit out of the way in order to fit it, but it did slide by. I just got 2 of these bolts in here holding it in place for right now, but I had to take the oxygen sensor out. It wasn't going to fit. It was a lot tighter than I was anticipating, but it's in. You can see the oxygen sensor wires down here are still touching it, but everything else is kind of zip tied out of the way. Oh, that's dark. I'll make sure nothing's touching before I do any kind of test fire and all that. But yeah, it looks like they fit in the car just fine, and I didn't have to take off the air conditioning line, which was a huge plus. I was a little concerned about that. Alright, so back under the car. You can see how I got the jack stand there. Just got the passenger header in. Wow, that was bad. Sorry. But the engine mount bolts are here and here. There's 2 little nuts. It's a 18 deep socket. You just take them off, and then the engine's just resting by gravity. Actually makes it pretty easy if you want to jack the engine around a little bit and help get some clearance to fit headers. The oxygen sensor, as you can see, is going to sit right there. There's actually a nice little cutout, it looks like, so it'll fit. I'll find out here in a minute when I actually go to hook it up, but it looks like it's going to line up just fine with the factory tunnel for the exhaust. Alright, this was probably the hardest car fit I've ever had in my life. It's not an exaggeration. Just to give an example of all the things I had to do: unhook the temperature sensor, disconnect the power steering pumps bracket, the alternator bracket, it's all the same, which involved taking those 2 bolts out, taking the bracket off for the power steering pump, the 2 bolts up top for that. I had to take off the oil filter down there, as you can see it. Of course you can't. Took off the oil filter, took off the oil pressure sensor. I had to loosen the brake master cylinder, all kinds of things, but it is finally setting where it needs to. Oh, and I had to jack up the engine again as far as I could possibly get it. But after kind of pushing and forcing, after everything was loose and I had it jacked all the way, I kind of jam it and push it pretty hard, and I finally got it to slip down. So it's in. From now on, it's just bolt up, and hard work's done. Yeah, that was a lot, but you don't have to do anything too crazy. I didn't have to like drop the front suspension or anything. Definitely took the better part of an hour here to get this side on. I came across my first real manufacturing defect. As you can see, the OEM gasket here over top of the new X-pipe, where it's supposed to tie into the factory manifold, or the factory axle back. They actually don't. It's a 4-inch center to center whereas these are 3.5. So I got to take a 1/4 inch off each side. Basically just drilling with a 1/4 inch right in here, and then boring it and smoothing it with a Dremel and a couple of drill bits to get it widened out. The first pipe I did turned out pretty good, I think, but rather time consuming. Kind of annoying that they didn't just slot the holes bigger in the first place. I put a couple of pictures here in the end so you guys can kind of see with dimensions what exactly was wrong with these flanges. You can see I got about 4 1/4 center to center versus the old being about 3 3/4. So that's why I was taking off a little bit more than a 1/4 inch on each side, actually. And here I kind of put them over top of each other. This is how I kind of marked the spot to remove with a little bit of Sharpie. And then I got a final picture here so you guys can see what it looks like all hung up underneath. So it's been quite some time since I started the video, but actually gets a little bit better timing, I think, to expose how well they've held up. So it's now August, and I installed them in February time frame. I now have the car tuned. As you can see, they've turned a nice purple color. Which is just discoloration from the heat. A little bit dusty right now. I gotta clean the engine bay a little better. But I haven't had any issues with them. This side's not quite as purplish looking. But yeah, no leaks. Everything's working fine. I will say, when I removed the air sensor, or the air push line, whatever it's called, that runs from across the back of the engine, and it had that 13mm bolt back here, it had hit the oil pressure sensor and cracked it. And apparently that's a really common problem with LS1 engines, and I didn't know that at the time. So that sensor, when it cracked, then every time I'd hit the gas, I'd see a little bit of smoke in the back, and I'm like, what the hell is this smoking? And to the point when I'd stop, you'd see smoke coming from under the hood. It was that sensor. And in order to replace it, I had to remove the intake manifold, and that was a big pain. But maybe if you're more careful than me, you won't break it. If you do, you're going to need intake manifold gaskets, and you're going to need to buy that new sensor, which isn't too expensive. But all the same, it's good to not spend money on things. I put a catch can in and a clean side separator from Elite Engineering, as you can see. It's dirty as hell, but helps a little bit. I'd say in 500 miles I'll get a little bit of, you can't really see, but a little bit of oil in the bottom of it. So I could probably go an entire oil change without having to check it, but I have been more than that just because I've been kind of curious. But I'm sure what you guys are really waiting for here is for me to start it up so you can hear what it sounds like. So I'm going to put this camera back the back of the car, and then we'll hop in and give it a startup sound and a little bit of rev, see what you think.